Hello YouTube, this is Masna with another iOS SDK tutorials. In this video I'm going to show you how to parse JSON in your iPhone apps. And actually I'm going to show you not just that step, but also how to retrieve data from a MySQL table and then print it out in JSON format in PHP, which is really easy, and I'm sure a lot of you, if you've been a web developer before, you probably know how to do that, since lately JSON has become really popular, and I think the reason for that is just because it's very simple. With XML, there's a lot of restrictions, and parsing XML is kind of a pain, but parsing JSON is really simple because you just have a couple of tokens for denoting that an object is either some string or an array or a dictionary. And other than that, I think everything else is just considered data. So let's get started. So normally we would begin by creating an Xcode project, but in this video we're going to begin by making a table in a MySQL database that I have set up already, and then creating a PHP file that will output the data in our MySQL table in JSON format. And then in our iPhone app we'll grab the data, parse it, display it in table view, and then upon selecting a row in a table view, we'll slide to a new view which will display all the data for that row. So I was thinking what we could do is we could do something like a news feed, where in our table, in our MySQL table, there will be a bunch of rows, one row per news item, and each item will have an ID, a title, maybe a timestamp, and then the full article. And I thought that would be a cool way to show you how to parse JSON. So let's begin. I have Google open to my MySQL database. I actually have it open on a software that I wrote. This is when I was younger. I wrote a software called MySQL QuickAdmin with a friend of mine named Jeff Broderick, and our goal was basically to make a MySQL web management tool that was much simpler and more elegant and user-friendly than PHP-MyAdmin. Now, PHP-MyAdmin is, of course, an excellent tool, but sometimes it's a little overboard. It's got all sorts of features, and sometimes you don't feel like having to, peruse each page as you try to find what you're looking to do. So this is a really great, simple, fast, efficient MySQL database management tool. And if you're by any chance interested in this, I could definitely send it to you in an email or a message, since the website that we used to support it with has been taken down a while ago. Okay, so these are two tables that I'm using for something else, so I'm going to make a new table, and we'll call it news. And let's see, we'll need an ID field, a title field, a timestamp field, and a description field, or an article field. So we'll go with 4. First one will be ID, we'll make that an int. And I'm going to make that auto increment and the primary key. The next one will be the title. We'll make that a varchar. 200 characters should be more than enough in any situation. Then the article, we'll make that a text field. And then the last will be a timestamp, and I'm going to use Unix timestamp, so I'm just going to make it an int, and I'm going to make it 20. Alright, so we'll make that table. Okay, cool, we have the table made. So now let's insert some dummy data. Alright, so we have our dummy data inserted. So now let's create a PHP file that will print out this data. So first I need to include the connection file. This will open a session or a link to the MySQL database. Now I'm going to grab all the data. Now I'm making an array out to store each data article, or each news article. And then I'm going to do a quick while loop. and simply JSON encode, or echo JSON encode the articles array, and that is a great PHP function that automatically spits out the data in JSON format. So let's take a look at that. So okay, so this is our data from our table in JSON format. So that's all set up. So now we can begin the iPhone app. Okay, so of course, let's begin by creating our Xcode project. We'll make the title JSON News. Create on the desktop. All right, so about a year ago and before that, if you wanted to parse JSON, you had to use SB JSON Parser, which is a great Objective-C library simply for parsing JSON. I don't remember who wrote it, but all I remember is that it worked really easy and it was very simple to incorporate in your app. And then they stopped, whoever had written the library, I think it actually might have been Google, but don't quote me on that. But whoever had written the library just stopped supporting it, and I was really confused until I found out the reason they stopped supporting it is because Apple released a new class and they called it JSON Serialization, and it does exactly what the other library did, which was parsing JSON, and it does it really well. So let's look that up, JSON Serialization. And it's really simple. You use the JSON Serialization class to convert JSON to foundation objects and convert foundation objects to JSON. By foundation objects, Apple means array, dictionary, string, number, or null. And the top level objects are either an array and a dictionary. So in our case, after we parse, our very top level object will be an instance of array because we have 3 data articles. When you select an object from that array, it'll be an dictionary object where you can call to object for key to get the ID, the title, the article, and the timestamp. Okay, and it's really as simple as that. So we download the data from the website, and then we call to a JSON object with data, pass in the data, options none, and then error. If we want to see what the error is, we can pass in a reference to an error pointer. But I know this will work, so I'm not going to bother with that. I don't discourage that. In fact, I do encourage that because sometimes you will have errors when parsing. But if there is an error, I believe this will return null. Yes, a nil will be returned if there's an error while parsing. All right, so let's go back to the app. And let's nest our view controller in a navigation controller to begin. So and we need to move this down below the initialization of the view controller. Alright, and then we set the root view controller of the window to the navigation controller. Alright, so now let's go to viewcontroller.zib. Let's add a table view, as we do so often. We'll connect the data source and the delegate, outlets, save. Let's make a link to our table view, because we're going to need that. I always call it main table view, so there's no conflict between table view in the data source and delegate methods and the instance variable table view. Let's make a connection from the file's owner to that in our zip file. And now let's set up our data source methods, but obviously we're going to need to download the JSON data and then parse it before we can fill the table view. Number of sections in table view is the first one, of course. Return 1. We're going to turn 0 for now. And then let's implement the last method. Again, if you don't know how this is working, I did a video on table views a couple of days ago, so please watch that so you're not confused. I'm going to turn this out. Okay, so now we need to download and parse the JSON data. So let's go to the viewcontroller.h file. We need two instance variables. One, which is going to be an array that stores each JSON item, which in this case will be a dictionary, and another for storing the downloaded data as it comes in when we're going to use an SURL connection and use its delegate methods. So we can download our data simultaneously on another thread and receive each stream of bits as it comes in. Okay, so after the view loads, we're going to set the application network activity indicator on so that the user can see the spinning activity icon in their status bar, so they know there's downloading going on. And now we have to begin downloading the data. So NSURL, the URL is this is a friend server I'm using. So to start a download of some file on another thread, you initialize an NSURL connection object, and when you initialize it, you give it a request which stores the URL that it's downloading, and the delegate, which in this case will be self. The delegate is where it will send messages when some event happens, like it downloaded some new data, the connection download finished, or the connection failed. Okay, so we need to implement 4 methods. So I don't have all 4 methods memorized. I know them vaguely from having done this before so many times, but I'm just to make sure I don't make any typos or mess up, I'm gonna copy them from Apple's documentation. So I'm gonna go into my browser and I'm gonna Google NSURL connection delegate. And that's gonna give me a link to the protocol reference. And here are the 4 that we need to implement. Did receive response, connection did receive data, connection did finish loading, and connection did fail with error. So the first one, the connection will call to its delegate, or this object here, when it receives a response, when the download has initiated. So let's implement that. When that happens, we want to initialize our mutable data object and prepare it for receiving data and appending it to the end of its already downloaded data stream. So data equals ns mutable data allo init. The next is connection did receive data. So let's copy that one. So when an NSURL connection object downloads some data, it downloads it in bits, as any internet download happens. And each time it receives a new stream of bits of data, it's going to pass them to you in this method, and you can append them to the end of your data object. Now since we called our instance variable data, I'm going to change this to the data. Now we can do data append data, the data. The third is connection did finish loading. I'm going to leave that blank for now because this is where we're going to do all the JSON parsing. And then the last is connection did fail with error. In this case, the NSURL connection object for some reason couldn't complete the download, whether it was interrupted or it couldn't start or the user isn't connected to any 3G or Wi-Fi source. We're going to throw an error using UIAlertView saying the download could not complete. So we'll make it an alert view object. We'll call it error view. We're going to initialize an alert view using it with title, message, delegate, cancel button title, other button titles. And we're going to give the title error, message, the download could not complete. Please make sure you're connected to either 3G or Wi-Fi. The delegate will be nil. We don't care when the user presses the dismiss button on this alert. So the cancel button title will be dismiss, and there won't be any other buttons on this alert view. And we're going to show it. And then we also need to turn off the network activity indicator. Okay, so here when the connection finishes loading, the first thing we'll do is we'll turn off the network activity indicator. And now we have to parse. So it's actually really simple. So we already set our declared an array, an NS array for the news for the parsed JSON. So we're going to parse the JSON and give the result to that news variable. So news equals NS JSON Serialization, JSON object with data, options nil, error nil. And then we can reload the table view. Alright, so now we need to go back to our self-row index path method. We've completed the parsing and we've told the table view to reload once the parsing is done. We need to change the number of rows to news count, the amount of objects in the news array. In this case, we should have 3 because we have 3 news items in our table in MySQL. And now, just to make sure it's working, we're going to set text label of the cell's text equal to news object at index path.row. So first we're going to retrieve the news article dictionary that corresponds with this row in the table view. And then we're going to call it to object for key title. And let's see if it works. Perfect. So it works exactly as we had hoped it would work. So now let's close this and let's do some cosmetic work. So first, let's give our view a title. And then let's go into our PHP file and let's add another item in our row array for each row. And this will be a nicely formatted string containing the date that the article is posted. And let's add that to the table view. So we're going to use the date function. And then we can throw in the timestamp. So that'll be row. And let's take a look at how it's formatted by refreshing our JSON page. Tuesday, July 31st, 2012 at 7:56. Looks good enough. So now let's go back to Xcode. And we're going to change our table view from style default to style subtitle. And we're going to make the subtitle when the article is posted. Let's run it again. That looks better. So now we can make it so that when the user selects a row, they can view the full article. So let's close this. And we need to make a new view controller. We're going to go to File, New File, Objective-C subclass. We're going to make it a UITableView subclass. I'm going to call it DetailViewController. So let's give a title label. Put that at the top and drag it all the way across. Okay. Now let's add another label for the time underneath. We'll make that gray and smaller. And now let's add a big text view. For the actual article's content. And let's save. So now we need links to each of these so we can set them up in our code. First the title label, then the time label, and then the description text view. Now we need to give this a property as well, so we can pass from the view controller to this view controller, the detail view controller, the news article that was selected. And we're just going to leave it in MS Dictionary format to keep things simple. We'll synthesize it. And now, in our view.did_load, we're going to set the 3 items, 3 subviews, give their content. News article, object for key, title, time label, text equals news article, object for key, date string, and description text view, text equals news article, object for key, article. Let's save. Now let's go to our viewcontroller.m. Let's import the DetailViewController file, the header file. And now we need to implement the TableViewDidSelect row at index path method, one of our delegate methods. So first we're going to create an instance of our DetailViewController. We're going to give it a title. I'm going to set it to the title of the article. Then we're going to give it the news article that was selected. And then we can push it. And I believe I forgot to connect the outlets in our DetailViewController.zip files. Let's go back and do that. save, and that should do it. Perfect. And that's our app. So I hope you learned a lot. As you can see, JSON parsing is really not very hard at all. In fact, it's probably one of the simpler things you can do with the iOS. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for my next video.